Lisa, thank you for joining me this morning. How are you feeling today?
Feeling very well. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me as your guest. Um,
Great. So
Lit.
perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your background and what's your take on work-life balance vis-a-vis being a full-time mother yourself.
I have always been in sales and management as a background, starting off from working in shops and then working my way up. Um, Work-life balance being a mother is tricky.
Okay.
Big juggling act. Um, Fortunately, it's a lot easier than when I started. I'm 45 years old, so the younger generation have it much easier than I did, but it's still a juggling act. There's a lot to juggle.
Okay. What were the initial struggles?
The initial struggles are when you're trying to build a career,
Mm-hmm.
as it were. Um, you have to focus on career. That's why I feel probably men have it easier. Probably men have it easier because they are not expected to be the household manager, let's put
Okay.
it this way.
All right.
So I feel the biggest job a working mother has is the mental burden of not only having the full-time job and a job at a certain level where, it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's the 40-hour week most of the time does not cut it.
Mm-hmm.
You have another full-time job because you have several other things to coordinate, the household, and you add in the children, and there's, after school activities, there's doctor appointments, there's did I go and do the grocery shopping? Do I have enough stuff to, prepare dinner this
Yeah.
evening? So it's the mental burden. And that's why I say it's a juggling act, because you have to juggle everything. And there was a meme going around recently where women are expected to work like they don't have children, but parent like they don't have a job. And it's impossible.
It's a tough cookie. It feels like that you're two complete different persons at one go. So because parenting is a full-time job really, so you're there 24/7 for your child or children, and basically have to address all their needs. So you feel responsible and majorly responsible for their upbringing. So it's a huge responsibility and a huge commitment. It's a lifetime commitment. Um, an interesting fact is that initially you mentioned the fact that nowadays the present generation has it a little bit easier. Is it because you feel there are more opportunities today, or it's easier to build up a career than it
There is
was?
more awareness. I know many people complain about the younger generation, but you know, you always stand on the shoulders of who came before you.
Mm-hmm.
My mother never worked a day in her life. All she did was took care of home, children, and so on. My generation and then was expected to go out to work in some shape or form. It was still frowned upon if you know, are career orientated and
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get ahead in life. So yes, there were less opportunities because if you are of childbearing age as a woman, you're seen possibly as a liability. So that decreases your opportunities out there. So you've got to work harder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you do choose to have children, you really have to step up the game. You have to prove that you're still worthy of being employable, even though you're going to go out on 3 months
Mm-hmm.
maternity leave. Or you have to make changes to accommodate this new, I don't call it situation, because having children in my case was not something that happened. It was something that was planned and wanted. But you have to make changes. You have to adapt. It's also a still very prevalent cultural thing in people of my age where it's the woman who takes
Takes
care
care, yeah.
of the household. We pick up the kids from school or take them to school or follow the homework or do the doctor's appointments and get dinner ready and do the shopping and the cleaning. the younger generation, because technically the 20-year-olds today, there are two generations between me and them, they realize that no, this is a team. If you're going to enter into this life, it is a team. So now, even the laws are helping out. There's parental leave now that did not exist 20 years ago.
Yep.
And that is a huge help, because that is recognizing legally that there are two in this team. There are two parents, not only one.
Yep.
So it doesn't all have to fall on the mother, even though it's still expected. For example, if the child is sick, it's the mother that's going to stay home. Thanks to parental leave, and they've also been discussing the introduction of parents being able to take sick leave to take care of children. That is a huge help, because predominantly it's still the male who is the majority breadwinner. So their job is more precious, so to say. And that's why I feel the younger generation, they have it better. I don't want to say easier, because it's not easy out there for anyone.
It's more widely accepted.
The work we've done is showing the fruits, and they're going to benefit from it, as should be. And, you know, it's not to demolish I'm not bashing the younger ones at all. But yeah, I'm glad to see these changes happening.
And it's interesting, the fact that the role of the father changed so much along the years. The father figure is majorly different than it was 10, 20 years ago even, because as you said, nowadays fathers are more involved in their child's day-to-day living. For example, personally, I'm not sure 100% whether my father knows what I studied and what I do on a full-time basis. He just knows that I work, and that's it for him. But I presume that fathers today, and I take it from my scouting experience, are more involved. 10 years ago, only the mothers used to pick up their children from scouts. Nowadays, it's either the father or the mother, or both in some cases, even in the introductory meeting. So when we start the meetings for when the child joins our group, they are introduced to the group, and the parents attend. So this sort of introductory meeting. And 10 years ago, only the mother used to attend. Nowadays, both parents attend, and I'm glad to see that both parents are equally involved in this, because, as you said, it's a joint effort. So that's a huge step forward when it comes to parenting. From the eyes of the child, how do you think this affects the perspective of motherhood and fatherhood?
It's really important that the child understands that he's got two people in his corner. Yes, there is always going to be the one who you're going to go to because you know you can get away with stuff. But it's important for a child to see that if it is a two-parent family, we know that not all the situations are the same, but it's important for the child to know that there are people in his corner, not just the ruler of the household that you're scared because you broke a glass and you want to hide it, and you know the mommy or the other figure that's going to cover it up or help you out or the affection. It should be both ways. Yes, there are roles. There's always going to be roles. There's always going to be a person's attitudes that affect that. So I don't believe that parents or carers or guardians have to be both identical in every aspect. No, because the child needs to be exposed to difference starting from the parents. So attitudes are going to be there.
Yep.
But from a child's perspective, I have a boy. So I am adamant in teaching him that, you know, not only the equality, but look, this is a two-way street. If you're going to have children, you're going to have to be able to roll up your sleeves and change those nappies and do the baths and go to the park or whatever. So, you know, it's a two-way streak.
When it comes to work, how do you think it affects the your child in this case? How aware is he that you have to juggle both jobs, really?
Fortunately, in my case, he's 13 now, so he's at that age where,
Yep.
things make sense.
Yes.
But he's always been, not that I burdened him, because it's important not to burden the
Yep.
child with your problems. It's just a matter of clarity. There were times where I could not go and accompany him to the outing. So I'd have to explain, Mommy has this important meeting. I can't come to this outing on this day. I will come another time. It is life. It is life. I wish I could duplicate myself and be there all the time, but it's not possible for anyone.
I think it's an important lesson. Sorry, I stepped in.
And also the thing, but you have to prioritize your... Yes, but if you teach your child to constantly put themselves second and to split themselves 100 ways without ever thinking about themselves, it has serious ramifications throughout the rest of their life.
Yep.
So balance is key, always.
Yep. So it's a mix between the world doesn't revolve around you and also a lesson of commitment, because if you're committed to something, you're committed to attend the meeting, it's also a valuable lesson of commitment.
Yes, very true.
Pawza ħabba sa kemm taqaf din ta'. So far so good, ma?
So far so good.
Sorry,
it's a habit.
Yeah, it's fine.
No, because a couple of weeks ago the bell was off and it was a joke. It was a Jewy joke.
Good time trekking, get a kwarta. Alright, bil-mistoqsijiet tal-issa. Alright. Tajjeb, resume? Tajjeb. Aħna konna? Mela. Commitment. So yeah, I think it's important. It's important for children to understand that commitment is a very valuable thing, and nowadays I think the level of commitment is sort of fading away in some areas. I reckon voluntary sector, and I have noticed a slight decline in the level of commitment. There is always something that came up. So I think the lesson of commitment is a really valuable one, and it starts from home.
I see that also in younger team members I bring in.
Okay.
There's the work to rule, which is right. They're totally right. Let's not bash them completely. It's not that they're not committed, but we have been so brainwashed or educated in the sense that you have to break your back and put in 60-hour weeks, even if you're paid for 40, in order to be a valuable employee, that when now we're faced with these 20-somethings that clock in at 9 and leave at 5 on the dot, we're shocked. Now, you mentioned voluntary work. Yes, it's probably harder for people in today's day and age to be truly committed to voluntary work. I mean, when you were talking about the Scouts, it sounded wonderful to me. And I was like, I'd love to do something of the sort. But how on earth can I commit to that? Not how can I find the time, because if you want to find the time to do something, you find the time to do something. But how could I actually commit to that? Why are youngsters finding it difficult? Because they're putting themselves first, which is not entirely wrong.
Agreed.
When you're young, up until you're in your 30s, live it to the max. Selfishly, yes, but if you're not ready to commit, don't. And I think it's a lesson we should learn from them, that it's not a wrong thing to put yourself first. And now, don't get me wrong, that's not the selfishness of put yourself first as there's disabled parking. I don't feel like walking. I'm going to park there.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
But teaching our children to respect themselves first is going to help them respect others. And that's where empathy, I feel, comes in. And that's an important lesson we need to learn from today's youth. Oh, I feel really old. Keep saying today's youth. I'm not that old.
Yes. I was thinking of another thing. Agreed. However, I think it's a matter of responsibility as well. So I agree on the fact that we really need to think of ourselves. Sometimes we have to be selfish, to put it that way, that we need to think of our own health and well-being in general, without obviously forgetting about the people around us. However, it comes also with a level of responsibility, and as I'm sure that you appreciate, because being a mother, so I'm not a parent yet, but I believe that you have to fully commit and dedicate yourself to your child, and it comes with a huge responsibility, and the fact that you need to juggle two very important aspects: your job and your child.
And
it's a
often
huge
they clash.
Yep.
Often they clash. As I said, they were the outings, activities at school, sick. You can't leave a child sick alone at home. Especially if you don't have a support system around you. And in fact, it's probably one of the reasons why couples are delaying having children, because you need to build that security for yourself before you can have children. You mentioned the responsibility and like the social responsibility for and empathy for people around you. Yes, that is something I've noticed, that the sense of it takes a village has been lost a little bit. But essentially, that's what we've taught them so far, to put themselves first. How can we correct that? If you pay attention, you realize that all these social issues that are coming up, I hate the phrase, the woke generation. Yeah. But isn't that, to a certain extent, taking care of the people around you, of speaking up when something's wrong?
True.
Maybe they're not giving the physical time, and they're posting on social media and going out to do protests, or speaking up in the supermarket when somebody says something against somebody who's in a hijab. I think that's an important lesson.
It is. I personally I struggle with this, because I'm quite the optimist in this. I believe that these shouldn't exist, for the simple reason that if we simply accept one another for just the way we are, and respect the fact and accept the fact that we are all human beings, and there's no difference between us. We just have different beliefs and a different lifestyle, but essentially we are all the same. So personally, I don't feel the need for these groups or communities who feel that they are a minority, when in reality they are part of humanity, sort of. Again, it's quite the optimistic statement.
It is optimistic and idealistic, and there has always been marginalization and racism and sexism and ageism and everything. And I don't think it will ever vanish completely.
That might be the next step for an evolutionary step in humankind. So I think that's one of the next phases of humanity. So once we come to terms with that, if we will, hopefully we will.
I'm a perennial pessimist. I have very little faith in humanity.
Well, past actions are more oriented towards your train of thought rather than mine, but
but again, this is where balance comes in.
Yes.
We need the fighters.
Yep.
And as human people, we need to have a cause
Yeah.
to fight against.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, yes, as human beings, definitely we need to serve a greater purpose,
If
whatever
we're not
that
out
may be.
hunting, we need to fight for something.
No, but I agree. Actually, you reminded me of the concept of purpose. I'm a firm believer that we need to serve some sort of bigger purpose, something bigger than us that we believe it will contribute to the world around us. Anyways, we digressed a bit from work-life
Management,
balance
yes.
and child rearing. In your career, have you ever encountered some form of resistance from your employer when it comes to balancing things out between job and family?
Yes. Where before I had my son, the particular job I used to do required travel,
Okay.
but it was regular travel at regular times of the year because we used to go to visit fairs and things like that. So it was something that could be planned.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment I announced that I was pregnant, the reaction was, that's what you women do. You go off and get pregnant for me. Now, how am I going to cope? And that really,
Sets you back.
it literally pulled the rug from under
Yeah.
my feet because this was somebody I respected a lot. And I really didn't expect that comment, and he didn't understand the gravity of what he said. And I had committed and given my blood, sweat, and tears
To the company.
to this company. And I used to consider myself to be a very valued employee. But when that comment was passed, I instantly made the decision, I'm going to have my baby and never come back. And there is still this idea that the moment they have children, but then they start getting sick and they start missing out on work and so on and so forth. And that is where I feel that the pandemic helped because it allowed all this remote working
And this flexibility.
and more
yeah.
flexibility. I don't have advice to give anyone to say, how can I promote flexibility in an inflexible work environment? And I'm not even going to tell anyone, go find a job that gives you those opportunities.
Yep.
But if you are committed to doing your job well, and when you're there 110%,
Mm-hmm.
it should follow. Now there's the establishments of HR, where when I started working, it was bloody unheard of. There was no such thing as an HR department. Nobody knew the laws. Nobody knew that there was the IER, what's
Yep, it's the
conditions
IR.
of
Yeah.
work. And there was lots of abuse and so on. These things are changing. But they need to be changed in two ways. There needs to be the institutions and the laws in place that say, look, you are entitled to this, you are entitled to that.
Yep.
And those are happening. A lot have happened. A lot of these have happened. Also, you need to admit that, look, if I am going to do this job, if I am committing to C-level or higher, where I manage people, where a company does depend on
Yep.
me, you need to give it your all.
It's a different level of commitment.
It's a different level of commitment. And I don't want to say you sacrifice. Again, it's a matter of finding balance,
Yep.
where you put the checks and balances in place. You put your boundaries and you say, look, this is going to happen. The exam period, recently we had the finals. My son was moving up to Form 3, so he had to ace his exams to be
Yep.
able to choose the subjects he wanted. And I warned them. I said, look, I have quite a bit of half days booked because these are his study days and I need to be with him. But there's leave.
Yep.
You can prepare.
Yep, you can plan ahead as
You
well.
can plan ahead. The inevitable happens. Now, if your son is suddenly taken to hospital and your boss gives you a warning because he didn't show up for work, then that's where the law comes in to protect you.
Yep.
So, yeah,
It has
it's
to be-
tough, but put your boundaries down, be clear, But also be clear to yourself of what you're ready to commit, because you cannot be both.
Yep.
You
Yep.
cannot.
Ultimately, the organizations are a business, and obviously, they for them to exist and for us to have a job, obviously we need to perform as well. So it's a given. And I agree with you on the fact that there needs to be regulations and commitments and responsibilities for both the employer and the employee. However, I'm glad to see that the workforce is shifting towards a more people-centric domain where the employee is also taken care of. Because especially in today's competitive market, the employer needs to take very good care of their employees. As you said, certain comments hit home, and all that loyalty that you've built up throughout those years crumbles in a matter of seconds.
Exactly.
Trust takes a lot of time to build, but a split second to shatter. So employers need to be very careful on that and to retain talent as much as possible.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, as a team leader, as a manager, you need to nurture the talent. Now, yes, that's where my mothering instinct kicks in, which can also work against me. But you need to take care of your employees. You need to empower them. And by empower, I don't only mean, bonuses and perks. And the most important thing I have in my job today, and I hope my CEO doesn't hear this, is that I know that if I have a problem, he's going to me, look, go, I know you're going to do your work if need be. Go. And that, to me, the fact that I know that if I have a problem, listen, I need to leave an hour early. I need to come in an hour early. Or, listen, I don't know what's going to happen today. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to work and then take it out of my leave later.
Yep.
It's to me, he's got me. I will walk through fire. I will walk on glass because I know that's what I have. And it's more important. Well, in today's economy, wage is important.
Yeah.
But let's not go there. But he has my 100%.
You have each other's back.
Exactly,
Yep.
commitment. And my commitment goes not that I have a great job, I don't want to lose it. Is that I want to improve the company. I want to push the company forward because I know it's to my benefit.
Yep.
And that is what needs to be understood. Yes, we are a business. And that must never be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
But little things like, I have a dentist appointment, can you take half an hour leave? Oh no, and then make up for it.
Yep.
That
Flexibility.
is enough. Because this concept of 9 to 5, we've passed Fordism now.
Mm-hmm.
The 9 to 5 doesn't exist. And it shouldn't exist.
And
if you're comfortable working till 6, but starting at 10, and then you need to be flexible enough that if somebody wants a meeting at 8, I have a few clients who are very early starters. They're not my favorite. No, they are. They like to have their meetings very early. But, that's it.
Yeah, you
Today
adjust.
you give,
Yep.
tomorrow you take.
Yep. And I think, as you said earlier, I think through the pandemic, we've learned to be more flexible on these things. And the day-to-day, basically, it's life. When life kicks in, dentist appointments, medical appointments, and the sorts. And this is when life kicks in, and we have to appreciate that we are all human. We all have our personal lives outside the place of work. So the CEO or the managing director, when they are aware of that the employees are human too and they have their own lives too, I think that's a huge boost in morale, and I think it's the key to increase the organizational loyalty as well.
I think that these little things, allowing a certain amount of flexibility, not necessarily accommodating, but also working to a person's strengths, are more important than the flash poolside parties and the gym in the
perks,
building,
yeah.
or the desk massages and things like that. Because to me, those are all gimmicks to brainwash you into thinking you're. And I don't think they improve performance significantly. I mean, yes, we do things together, but quite honestly, we're much happier to pop out of the office, go have a coffee at the
Yep.
coffee shop, have a good laugh.
The little things.
And I tell them, leave your work phones in the office. We're just going to go have a coffee because we're stressed. Let's just go have a coffee and get out of here. And it's 3/4 of an hour and we're back stronger. So it really is the little things.
Yeah.
The little things. And yes, I do understand the place where you have to, you have to keep rules. I'm a very process-orientated person. There's hierarchy, there's a process, there's a way to do things and so on. But I'm not totally inflexible, and I don't think anyone should be. There are guidelines, there's a ladder, but if you go up one and then go down and then go up two, it's fine. The important thing is that you get to the top.
Yep. And that the core results is achieved ultimately, because I always say that having a plan is good, but you don't need to necessarily follow the plan to the dot. The plan is there as a form of guiding post to get you from A to B. Along the way, you need to change the plan, because if you don't, it means that you're not learning as you go along. So from A to B, the plan should be there, starting from A, but when you arrive at the B location, it has to have changed a bit, because that shows signs of growth and that you've learned along the way. Earlier you mentioned strengths, and that the employers needs to play around the strengths of their employees. What would you consider the greatest strength that a working mother needs to have or develop in order to balance the work life and family life?
The greatest strength a working mother has is the simple fact that she is Wonder Woman. We're always on the verge of breaking down, but we're phenomenal, quite honestly. Toot my horn a little bit, because especially when you're doing, not especially when you're doing a C-level job, when you're doing any job, any commitment, anything, even if it's a few hours a week, you still have a mental load that other people do not even imagine. So that is your strength.
Mental fortitude.
Yeah. And it's okay to recognize at times that, listen, I'm on the edge. I need 5 minutes to myself, or I just need to scale back a little bit.
Yeah, agreed.
As unfortunately, that's something we were discussing it a while ago, that, allowing a certain time to myself feels sinful.
That self-sacrificial nature of a mother, right?
No, I'm not allowed to have time to myself. I would be doing something for someone else. But that is a strength. Also, as a mother, and I'm also very careful to not over-mother my team, but it is important to have that element of empathy with the people around you. I work in sales, and they're completely different people. They're completely different. One is analytical, and the other one is super aggressive. The other one is laid back, relaxed. You wonder how anything ever gets done. And that's what I mean, play to their strengths. I heard a very interesting discussion from somebody who is a C-level, and she was saying that when she has a new project, she looks out for the angry person, for the negative person, and for the lazy person.
Okay.
And why is that? Because the lazy person is the one who's going to show you how to get things done in the easiest possible way, with the minimal effort possible. So he's your process organizer. Yeah. The angry person is there, who's going to point out what's wrong, what is going to trigger clients, other employees, so on and so forth. So he's going to be your the person you watch to see what's doing well and what's not. Your negative person is obviously the one who's going to point out every flaw
in the process,
allow you
to improve
on it.
And that's actually an interesting concept.
And it blew me away because I was always like, oh my God, but so-and-so's so negative, and we've worked so hard on this project and all he does is pick it apart. And then I was like, hold on, there's a wealth of you have an analysis without having had to pay for it.
True.
So
True.
I was like,
Talent management.
wow. I was like, and that completely blew my mind. So yeah, look out for everything. If they're negative, brilliant. They're your analysts. They're going to pick things apart and show you what needs to be fixed. They're lazy. Fantastic. They're going to teach you how to get things done effectively with minimal effort, maximum output. So, wow. That's an important lesson I learned recently.
Making very good use of the strengths of the people around you.
Exactly. And even if we consider them as negative things, not necessarily. So, yeah, be open. Look at what's around you and make the most of it, because there is always something to do with what you have in your hands.
For sure. And as you said, you have to make most out of the things that are around you and are already in your possession. Because we tend to always seek the next shining object, when in reality we lose focus on what we have at the moment. So
that's very true. And I think it's probably something that motherhood taught me, where if the child has really curly hair, you're not going to get it straight. So don't fight it. Go with it. And, when you see, I really hate it when people comment, oh, but my God, he's 4 years old and he's in a pushchair. She needs to get the shopping done. Just leave her be. Yes, he's in a pushchair. Makes her life that little bit easier. Oh my God, they're having lunch and the two kids have their heads in the iPad. Yes, this is probably the only time in a month she can eat a hot meal and doesn't have to do the dishes afterwards. So just mind your business.
Yeah, there's always another layer, right, of
Exactly.
what we see. Sometimes we judge on what we're perceiving or seeing at that particular moment, but there's actually multiple layers to that, right?
Yes, very true. And there's that in every aspect of life, not only parenting or you never know what a person is going through. It could be small, it could be big in your eyes, could be massive to them, could be crippling to them. And that keeping that at the back of your mind is important in everything, in every single thing, whether it's crossing the road or you're in your car getting really angry because they're taking really long to cross the road because they're reading their phone. Maybe they're reading some tragic news.
Yeah.
So take a deep breath. It's okay.
Lisa, thank you for sharing your wisdom today. It was a lovely conversation. We've fluctuated quite a bit,
Yes.
but in reality, we've been going back and forth on the topic of well-being and motherhood, and I think that's actually we are leading by example of juggling both topics at one go. So I think we were the embodiment of motherhood today. So
Lots of teaching moments.
thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you for having me. This was
You're more than welcome.
nice.
Hopefully we'll do another one in the future as well.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening as well. That has been the Growth Schema podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.